Now that I've demonstrated why we need looping, we can begin looking in more detail at the while loop. Let's start by looking at the syntax template for the loop. Begin with the keyword while, followed by a relational expression. This expression will return a true or false value, of course. After the relational expression is a statement block. And in that statement block will be the statements that you want to repeat over and over again in the loop. There can be as many or as few as you need. I'd say most loops have at least 2, but you could actually get away with 0 in the right situation, although we probably won't see that in this course. And that's all the formal pieces of a while loop: the keyword while, the relational expression, and the statement block. But there's actually quite a bit more to while loops than just that. So let's take a look at the balance example from the last lesson again. So we started off with 2 variables, balance and rate. We assigned values to both of those, so we'll do that again. Then we created a variable years, and we set it equal to 1. The first line of our while loop, while years less than or equal to 5. The variable years is something I like to call the loop control variable, because it controls how long the loop is going to run. So here we're saying that while the value of years is less than or equal to 5, then multiply the balance times the rate, and then increment years by 1 again. Now we have all the pieces. If we had to break down the steps that we have to take to write a while loop, given that we're going to use a loop control variable like years, then the first step would be to initialize the loop control variable. Then the second step is to write the actual keyword while followed by the relational expression, which will include the loop control variable. Then inside the statement block we have the statement that performs our major work, which is multiplying the balance by the rate and putting that back into the balance. And then finally the last step would be to modify the loop control variable so that the relational expression will eventually become false. By incrementing years each time through the loop, we're ensuring that years will eventually become 6, which will make this relational expression false and will break out of the loop. Without the increment of years plus years, then the loop would run forever, executing this same statement over and over again. Well, we don't want to do that. We only want it to execute 5 times. So we increment years by 1 so that it eventually will get to 6. Let me add a console write line statement here. And here we go. So now we can run it. And we see the result. Something we might also do while we're testing our loop and seeing if it works correctly would be to add another console write line statement right here with the balance and the years, just so we can see how it's progressing. Now let's run it again. We see the balance after 1 year, we see the balance after 2 years, after 3 years, after 4 years, after 5 years. You don't necessarily need that statement, and it's certainly not what the problem called for. The problem called for determining what the balance is after 5 years. But by adding these statements, we can follow the progression of the program until it's finished. Once we're finished, we don't need this statement anymore, so we take it out, put the program back to the state it was before, and then just run it again. Not all loops require a loop control variable. Some loops use something called a flag, and what's called a flag or sentinel controlled loop, where we're looking for some particular condition to occur, such as end of the file or when you're out of user input, something like that. But in many programs you do need a loop control variable, so that's why I introduced this type of loop first. So those are the details of writing a while loop. What I want to do now is move to the next lesson where we're going to look at a particular type of loop that uses a loop control variable. It's called a count controlled loop.